Alright guys, we're going to take a look at the PC Engine. It's pretty much the size of a CD case and maybe 3 CD cases high. This thing is tiny. And well, the PC Engine, this came out in 1987 in Japan. Okay, so this is like the first 16-bit era system. Now we know this system over here is the TurboGrafx 16. The TurboGrafx 16 came out a few years later when they, finally decided to bring it over here. This is the same thing. It's the 8-bit processor. It's a 7 megahertz 8-bit processor. So it's only an 8-bit processor, but 7 megahertz is blazing fast for an 8-bit processor at the time. It was faster than anything else. It has two 16-bit graphics processors. It can display 512 colors on screen at a time. And that's where it gets its 16-bit name from. And that's why it's able to display graphics such as Street Fighter 2. The fact it's an 8-bit processor doesn't have really anything to do with what it can display graphically. So that confuses people, but just understand this is a 16-bit era console. And it was the first. It was really the first machine in Japan to take on the Famicom and say, you guys like the Famicom? Check out this. This is 16-bit graphics. Way more colorful, bigger sprites. The processor's 4 times faster. There's only one controller port on it. So that was probably a stupid decision. I shouldn't say probably. Really, that was definitely a stupid decision to only put one controller port on this system. And on the side you have your RF output, I should say, with your channel selector switch. Pretty typical stuff. On the left side we have the power input, DC input. On the back it has an interface module, and that's for a bunch of different things. Obviously we know that this had a CD-ROM add-on, so that's where it talks to the CD-ROM. It's also got video outputs. You could get the PC Engine booster, video booster, right? And you could buy that, clip it on the back of the system, and it would give you AV outputs. And that was that. Obviously, it's a very small cartridge slot. You guys have seen the Hue cards. And your power switch on the front clicks on, locks the cartridge in. Very simple system. And this system went through a lot of different variations. Eventually made like the core graphics, which is basically the same thing, but it's black instead of white, and it's got your AV outputs right on it. So this came out in 1987, but eventually they did add AV outputs directly on the system. And this eventually came out over here. We got this is the TurboGrafx 16. This thing is absolutely huge in comparison. Put that on there. We'll line that up. And it's over 2 times bigger. And also the controller ports. When you see them in pictures, you don't maybe realize that this controller port's a lot smaller. Okay, so here's a TurboGrafx 16 controller. Obviously it's black like the system, and here's a PC Engine controller. It's obviously white and red like the PC Engine. They're basically the same controller. Okay. But here's the controller port for the TurboGrafx 16 controller, and here's the controller port for the PC Engine. Get the light on there. So as you can see, even the controller port is much smaller, which kind of sucks because that means you can't use your TurboGrafx 16 controllers on PC Engine. The other thing, unfortunately, and this is Legendary Axe 2 for the TurboGrafx 16, and it will fit in the PC Engine. Okay, and it will turn on. The PC Engine games are the exact same Hue card. Okay. So you can fit PC Engine games in a TurboGrafx 16, and you can fit TurboGrafx 16 games in a PC Engine, but unfortunately they will not work. Without some some expensive adapter or modifications, unfortunately, the TurboGrafx 16 games won't play on the PC Engine. You know, that'd be really cool if the controllers and the games were interchangeable, but unfortunately they're not. So if you pick up a PC Engine, you know, you got to pick up all new games for it. But you know, I may pick up a few PC Engine games, but you know, there's a lot of games in Japan that didn't make it over here. This system was retardedly popular in Japan. Okay, the TurboGrafx 16, they, you know, finally brought it over here. They didn't really advertise for it very well. Well, I guess maybe they did, but you know, compared to Nintendo, there's no way. Nintendo had all the third-party support. You know, that's the same reason the Sega Master System failed in North America. Nintendo had contracts with almost all the third parties. You know, all the third-party companies that made NES games, you know, they weren't allowed to make games for other systems. It was part of their contract. Now, eventually, Nintendo wasn't allowed to do that anymore, but that's how it was in the late 80s, early 90s anyways. Now, obviously, this system became very popular in Japan for another reason, and that's the CD-ROM add-on. Okay, and that's this guy here. Now, we all think the Sega CD was pretty ahead of its time, and it was. I mean, even in the early 90s, 92, 93, CD-ROM technology was still pretty advanced. This came out in 1988. You could get CD-ROM add-on for the PC Engine in 1988. This was the first video game console to use CDs. Their very first in the world. And that's pretty high tech. And also in Japan there was a lot of RPGs for the PC Engine and for the PC Engine CD-ROM. So the PC Engine did very, very well in Japan. It basically, you know, it sold just as well as, say, Nintendo and Sega, you know, if not outselling Sega Master System or Mark III. So the system did very well in Japan. Now this is the interface unit. Now if you guys are familiar with the Sega CD, you know that when you have the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD, you gotta have a power adapter for both. Okay, and here's the power adapter on the PC Engine. Okay, and your PC Engine slides in here like so. Okay, now you'll notice you can't plug it in. This interface unit is going to power the PC Engine through that interface port on the back. Okay, same thing if you take your CD-ROM unit and you slide it into the other side of the interface unit. Okay, it's got an eject mechanism here, which ejects both systems from the interface unit. Okay, but when you have them in there, you lock them in. Now that when you lock them in, it actually turns the interface unit on. So what happens with the interface unit is it's got one power plug. Okay, so this one power plug powers both the PC Engine and the CD-ROM, which is pretty damn genius. You know, you don't have to have two big power bricks like you did with the Sega CD. So they did that right. Now also the interface unit gives you your AV stereo outputs. Okay. So once again, you unlock it, eject this, and like I said, your PC Engine here, it's got no AV outputs. But through this interface, they are putting out composite video and stereo going through these pins here. So just having the interface unit, I mean, not only does it let you use the CD-ROM, not only does it power both, but it gives you the video output and the stereo sound for your PC Engine games. So pretty neat little device. And not only does it do all that, but it's got a handle built into it. So I mean, they really did think of everything on this thing, and it's pretty cool. And also, as you can see, the PC Engine and the CD-ROM unit all together on the interface unit is still, well, it's about the exact same size as the TurboGrafx 16. So once again, when they brought it over here, they really bulked it up. And that's the PC Engine. We know it over here is the TurboGrafx 16. You know, competition for the Sega Genesis over here. System certainly did not do very well. But the PC Engine in Japan was extremely popular. There's hundreds upon hundreds of PC Engine games in Japan that never came over to the TurboGrafx 16. A lot of shooters and a lot of RPGs. Very popular in Japan. And so that's the PC Engine.